let's start like at a really high level. What's a product roadmap?
Oh, is it defaulted to me? I would say it's your strategic plan, at least for the quarter, and it gets a little more hazy farther out in the year. But I think it's key goals that you want to achieve that have some high-level metrics on them, for the year, and I think it's more clear for the quarter.
Jesse?
I guess for me, I'd say not to use the word, but like it's a path or the road of where you're going next. So to be simple, it's where we're going next. But we always kind of look. It depends on your audience. I think you should have different flavors of roadmaps, right? Strategy, tactics. Your development team wants their own path of what's next. They want to know how that aligns to where the top of the company is going. But obviously you need the top of the company to tell you, where should we be going next? Where should we put in the spend? So I guess for me, it's what's coming next.
Aviad?
For me, it's always been a measurable framework that pretty much help with transparency within the organization and create more alignment. And especially when we're talking about cross-functional teams, right? Product and engineers and designers, it's pretty much your guideline, kind of like your Bible, right? The framework that you go by, that everybody can look back to and kind of refer to in terms of what's coming next and how do you measure that success.
Awesome. So I want to talk a little bit about how we build roadmaps, and then I want to talk a bit about how we blow up roadmaps, because I think what we all know is that they don't stay around forever. Sometimes they don't stay around for a week. But let's start first with so we talked about strategic direction, we talked about goals, we talked about alignment. So Jess, I'll throw this one your way. Who do you typically involve in the process when you're trying to develop your roadmap?
Yeah, so we kind of start from the top. We start from the top and do like the strategy, and then we also have the tactics, and we kind of bring that back up. So from starting from the top, we at our organization we do have a couple key people on the product team that are dedicated to strategy. So we have like product owners, managers, but we also have some kind of product executives as well. But really, ultimately, we involve being more of a mid-sized company. So we're not large corporation. We're not small startup. So our ownership is involved a little bit on setting some clear budgets of some objectives that milestones they want to reach this year. So we have like an innovation lab. There was some budget allocated to that. So it was important to include that C-suite representation of ownership or finance from the budgeting perspective, but then also we engage some sales and marketing components to that from the industry perspective, and then ultimately some client or customer relationship type leadership as well. And ultimately our product team has a seat at the table. So we're kind of looking at having, if you think of a pie chart, we have like a certain kind of spend or amount of allocation we want to dedicate to certain things that align to the growth of the company. So like there's growth, there's like maintenance, like things that we want to dedicate to improving the product and making it better and making users happy, and then also things like technology enablers. So we do have technology leads to make sure that we're moving forward on all things automation, DevOps, stuff like that we need to do, and security. So we really interview, starting at the top, a lot of those different stakeholders, and then kind of from there glean like the themes that we're hearing and say, okay, we definitely need to focus on this industry, this target segmentation. We do need to do some innovation over here. This contract's up for renewal. We gotta kind of pay attention to this guy over here a little bit, this customer. So we kind of try to set up that strategy from like a quarter perspective, and then meet with more of the product management team to kind of, they have like the tactical understanding of like what is going on with that product, what is the feedback right now, what's the current state of it, what's the pulse and health of it, and then we try to align those two together. So that's kind of who we engage, and then taking it a step further, we have some workshops together with strategy and tactics, and we do sticky notes and have like a wall where we're just kind of putting together the plan. And we like doing the sticky note thing at first because it's really easy to like throw it away, to your point. So it's kind of how we start.
So in terms of, it sounds like you're engaging all different levels of the company across product, different areas of the business. But when you're talking about, like I hear sometimes like competing themes. Like I'll hear, you know, the product roadmap is the strategy, but the roadmap should be open to change. So that feels like a tension there. So like I'll throw this one your way, Joel. So like how do you resolve the tension that a roadmap should be a path and a guide, right? That's executing the strategy while somehow reconciling the fact that it should be okay to change it.
I think there's a couple pieces to that, right? So you're the one that owns the roadmap as the product manager. You're driving the strategy, you're driving the vision, but there could be changes in the business, right? There could be unexpected events, there could be mass outages, right? And then all of a sudden, this roadmap that you had that you thought was locked in, it's now a dynamic roadmap that needs to quickly shift and change based on the highest priority. So I think being able to drive that and steer that ship, and then also communicate and get the right messaging across to the other business stakeholders that may have competing needs. I think your true north should be, hey, this is the order, this is my ranked list in order of priority, and hey, this is what I think the list should be. But if it changes, I think being able to quickly handle that change.
So how do you handle competing priorities, right? Because sometimes you'll have, you know, two different business units that all have seemingly important things. You kind of have different team members that are all kind of jockeying for what we think, what they think is the most important thing. How do you resolve that prioritization challenge?
What's happened for me is including both of those people at the same table and working to a resolution to manage expectations, and if there are competing differences, just coming to a decision with everybody there, and also educating them on your perspective of why, and just trying to get that alignment. So I think getting that buy-in and alignment is that very critical skill, and if not done right, it's just going to have downstream issues, because people are going to get confused as far as why you chose their item versus the other team. So I think having all of them together in a very open and transparent way helps to hopefully at the end of the meeting have some type of resolution.
So I think like to that end also, you'll sometimes have situations where business stakeholders are almost like bestowing the roadmap to you, right? Where they're saying, okay, so we know you have about this much capacity for the year, so can you work on this feature, that feature, and the next feature? This is the order in which we'd like it done. You know, do you think you can commit to this, right? So there's one aspect of it which is like, great, thanks for making it easy for me. But then, you know, particularly when we're talking about wants versus needs, I'm going to throw this one your way, Aviad. How do you handle like stakeholder-driven roadmaps? And especially, I think, in light of the fact that we want to try to elevate our business's understanding of how we go from this like intuition, I think this is what I want, and maybe it's even what you need, to actually going through a discovery process where we can nail down, is it actually what we need?
Sure. So I think that two of my friends here also mentioned before that the most important thing is do some sort of validation before you prioritize a set of features or the product itself you want to go to market, but to continue and iterate while you're developing it. And so, you know, most stakeholders who are making decisions about what product or features they would like to see in the roadmap, that decision sometimes is very emotional. It can be even biased to some extent, right? So going back to the data, going back to do some sort of validation and experimentation to kind of showcase what the numbers are showing, right? What is the customers are actually expecting to be delivered is one way to diffuse that type of biasism in a way. And I think doing and kind of define the MVP, there's another way, right, to kind of manage how you evolve that product over time and make sure that some of those stakeholders, right, are bought in and can share their feedback, right? But you have slightly more alignment in terms of where you are right now and where you would want that product to kind of be developed to be. So again, the experimentation is obviously pre-launch and during development, and obviously post-launch, you need to continue doing that.
So is it almost this notion that we should be, part of the roadmap should be the fact that the roadmap itself is going to change, and we should be maybe even intentional about the fact that we're going to probably blow it up once we know more?
I think that good organizations know with certain certainty, right, that that's going to happen, right? It's just how you manage it, right? And in order to manage, right, the fact that what you thought that your roadmap going to look like, you need to slice and chop, right, the work into very small chunks, whether it's weekly sprints or bi-weekly sprints, right? So you can monitor exactly the progression and then pivot from the original roadmap as needed.
So just as we kind of think about where product management is now versus maybe where it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when we think about the fact that the road mapping process itself is evolving, the tools that we use even to do road mapping evolve, what are the aspects of road mapping that if we look out maybe 5, 10 years that you think might be due for an upgrade? I'll let you hold a few questions.
Yeah, good question. I think actually what's due for an upgrade with a lot of the road mapping tools, I think that it's easy to see a pill on like a chart, right? Like a pill or like a bar, and I think when you see that, it becomes very like feature focused, or like it's like, okay, that's the thing, we gotta build that thing. Like it becomes more of like an object, and I think that's kind of what's lacking. Is what I would love to see is where you can build a roadmap that is totally focused on outcomes, and it challenges the business. So when that guy comes with his like Excel spreadsheet of the things he wants you to do, and then like just make these in these bars and just put it out there. I did it for you. It's like, okay, well hold on. Like what is the business outcomes for us this year? Like this quarter, like the next 6 months. So what I would love is like, it's not focusing on like how many pills we can get done in as fast as possible and these outputs. It's like, what are the outcomes? A lot of the tools, they kind of marry like the goals or strategic initiatives like with the features themselves, but I think it would just be nice to have more of like an outcome-oriented roadmap that, to your point, is going to change. Like instead of telling me, I'll use the anecdotal thing. I know we're being recorded, so hopefully it doesn't have bad for my company, but like we have something, it's like, we're gonna build this digital marketing, intelligent marketing solution where we put paid ads in front of users. That's what we're doing. It's gonna get us to a $1.3 billion company if we do that, because we could charge 15% commission on a purchase. And it's like, okay, well, instead of telling us, then he's like, tell me the plan to get there. Well, we'd have to build have to have a data mart to load that up, feed in these extracts, get a data store locked up here, get some modeling for a data set, whatever, yada, yada, yada. Instead of building a roadmap out that way, it should be like, what's the outcome? Like, what's the goal we're looking for? It's like, well, we want to generate a new revenue stream by having commission on sales on our website. It's like, okay, let's just start there, because we don't even know what's going to do that, right? Is somebody really going to click on an ad? Should we even be doing ads? Should we have like an email notification, like you're up for this? So I would love to just see like more kind of focus on that outcome of like, this is a goal and not what it is really.
Yeah, love it. And I think like, to the point that you made earlier, Joel, in terms of it blowing up, I suppose outcomes probably shouldn't blow up all the time.
Yeah. I just wanted to share, some of you guys might have heard this funny phrase a couple of years ago. It would be really funny if you're still hearing it, but people used to say that the product manager was the CEO of the product, and that's just changed completely, I would say. just in my organization and just the last couple organizations that I've been in, there just needs to be a tight alignment and camaraderie across the teams. And it's funny, I heard a senior leader the other day say, we need to move together like an amoeba. And I think that's very appropriate, because you're like this little organic amoeba moving around together as like this little pod, right? And that amoeba could have, it could have a design person, it could have a engineer, it could have 2 to 3 different product managers that have 2 products that integrate with each other. But either way, you all need to go in the same direction, and you have to march towards the same vision. So, you know, nobody reports to you, so you're not a CEO. And I just see that continuing to grow in the next few years, right? Just having that cross-team collaboration. Dependencies, they just need to be airtight, where if you're building something, there should be another team building the exact same thing. And if they are, it should just be a different part of it, so that you guys can just kind of pivot off each other.
Aviad, what would you like to say?
And to add to that, I think Aaron kind of mentioned before, to what extent, right, you want to delight your customers. I think that there is a bit of a shift from creating the exciting experiences to ones that are focused more on efficiency to the business, right? And I think with that, some of the tools that we're going to see probably in the future are going to be more correlated to risk tolerance, right, for the business in terms of making the investment, allocating the resource, right, and then launching the product, which is something that is kind of developing over time. But the original, kind of the initial application that were launched in the marketplace will really just have the wow factor to them.
Yeah, and I think it takes a couple of years to also collect that data, right? So some of these processes that were tried out, they're looking back at the data 2 to 3 years from 3 years ago. And like, wait a minute, like we built all these cool things, they're really shiny. I can tap and hold and there's a pop-up, but there's no revenue. So maybe we should, focus on the table stakes, right? Let's focus on delivering business value. Let's focus on revenue. How are our business users going to do their job easier? I think it's getting back to that, back to the basics.
Which is kind of ironic, because it sounds like what we're actually coming to is that our technology roadmap, because a lot of us, maybe not all of us, but most of us are building technology, digital products, that they should actually achieve a business outcome. And the irony is that oftentimes it's our customers trying to drive outcomes that don't actually help the business that are at the source of roadmap challenges.